Good evening, folks. This is Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project. Wednesday, January 31st, 10:53 p.m. Mountain Time, bringing you a grand solar minimum update. You're looking at the 10-day snow accumulated totals for North America, according to the GFS model, which have shifted. The GFS models have all shifted to high albedo moving into February. We'll just pause this up and briefly discuss it. Indiana, Ohio looking at up to 2 feet of snow in this storm, and all of northern New England. As we warned about a few days ago, look at these totals. Next 10 days, you're looking at upwards of 2 feet of snow, according to the models. All of the Appalachians from West Virginia north is looking like fresh powder and good skiing. And we have another big band here in southern central Montana. Heads up, you're looking at 36 inches in the mountains here, south central Montana. Alberta, you're going to get pummeled. That's you, Brent. As well as British Columbia over the next week and a half. I'll run it through one more time so you can catch the progression. Tomorrow, we're going to have widespread light snow up in Maine. A little bit here in the central Appalachians, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. And then some light snow here in the northern Rockies. Then this low pressure is going to develop, and over the next 3 days, dump up to 2 to 3 feet of snow up there in British Columbia and Alberta. At the same time, we're talking 2 feet of snow is going to be covering large parts of Montana. Much needed snow for the north here. And then that middle, starting on the 5th and the 6th, the storm's going to blow up through Chi-Town or through Indiana and Ohio here, bringing heavy totals all the way up through the northeast. That's the newest model, and it is forming a U here where the Wisconsinian glacial extent, the maximum glacial extent, right on the edge there. And that's because it's less snow up here because it's frigid. The minus 20s up in that zone. You don't want to be up in that area. Let's talk about the GFS model for Europe. This is moving in through February 3rd, the next 2 days. You're going to have plenty of snow in northern UK, a little bit in Scotland. Spain is picking up high amounts here in the north. The Alps are picking up to what looks like 2 to 3 feet of snow in the next few days. So more alerts, and then watch what blows up in Russia towards the end of the model here. Just north of Moscow, they're going to get over 6 feet of snow developing here into the grays. 60 to 70 inches by the 7th. In the next week, north of Moscow should have record. We should be seeing some amazing footage from those types of atmospheric compression depths and snow depths. This is amazing what's happening right in this area. Huge amounts of snow quickly. The 10-day forecast for the UK is upwards of 2 feet of snow to the north. Just look at the map. I'll run it through one more time for all you guys. Heinrich, look at you in Denmark picking up some snow in the blue. So that's a heads up north of Moscow. We're going to be watching that strange anomaly that is occurring there. It's going to tilt the world. And you're looking at picking up some significant snows here east of the Alps and up through Poland. But this area north of Moscow, heads up. UK, it's not over yet. And it's just beginning here. Let's go in the Far East. Check out the totals here in Russia. Now this is North Korea. That can't be good for them. But the totals here are epic in the 4 to 5 foot range. Klucheskov, Northern Japan is going to continue to get pummeled with another 4 feet of snow predicted. In the next 2 days, they're looking at 1 to 2 feet here in central Japan. And in this particular region, it's looking like 4 to 6 feet of snow in Japan. So Japan is going to continue to get buried as we descend into this grand minimum. And can you imagine what we're going to see next winter? This is just the peak of the first winter we're covering. And it's just the beginning, because I think the pattern is shifting a little to the right, meaning these snows are going to get heavier and denser towards the end of February and into March. We're going to be watching it and covering it. And that, ouch, is a heads up. Extreme weather danger is often overlooked as Cook County reports 26 cold-related deaths in 2017. A person was found dead in this alley near Grand Milwaukee and Union Avenues in Chi-Town on January 12th, 2018. The death has been classified as, a death caused by cold exposure. Many more of these are going to be coming. So we better be preparing. The day after Christmas, with an Arctic chill gripping Chicago, police and paramedics were called to the city's west side, where a man was found unresponsive inside a car parked on the street. The early morning temperature was -3. The driver's side door of the car was ajar. The man was dead. And that is the first boom of the day. And this is a cat jumping into a beanbag boom. That's pretty significant. Storm blows through Aroostook. Cold on the way. -11 predicted for Maine. And up to 2 feet of snow over the next 10 days. The pattern for Maine is continuous grand solar minimum. 8 unusual things we've seen across the U.S. in January. Let's dive in. It's worth it. Much of the central and eastern U.S. experienced chilly conditions. That's putting it mildly. And that's a heads up. The cold temperatures resulted in wintry precipitation in parts of the South. For the first time in recorded history, folks, there was snow in 50 states. We'll get to that. Warmer than average temperatures dominated the West, and snowfall has been lacking, and dry conditions are abound. Record cold in the East. Check it out. Coldest first week of January on record. New York City, departure from normal of -16 degrees. Baltimore, departure from normal 17. Look at the average temperatures for the first week of January. Boom. Cat on a beanbag, boom. Significant. Tallahassee, Florida? Are you kidding me? Snow covered the ground in parts of all of 50 states twice. 2 times. Never before in history has that happened. Never before in history do we know of have the 50 states had snow on the ground in 2 different months during a single winter. During global warming. Ice jams in the Northeast wreaking havoc. These are rafts of ice in the yard there. Record warmth across the West. This is predicted in the pattern that is the grand solar minimum pattern, the ice age pattern. It warms up in the West and there are severe droughts. We're going to get to that at the end of the video. Stay with us. Snowfall lacking in parts of the West. This is still where we're at. I'm right down here, and there's been 1 snowfall this year. And there's nothing in the future. There's the drought conditions. These are followed by deluge in the next cycle. So the first cycle is drought, the second cycle is deluge. Strange and severe weather. Here, California saw a rare tornado, first one in 20 years. That's a heads up. I'll leave you links to all of this. Tropical low devastates Western Australia's north, drops massive rain. Oh, totally fluxed. That's a truck Is this land? Is that land? That's what's going on there. Severe monsoons, ex-tropical cyclone Hilda and Joyce both hit Kimberly. And that is the result. I'll leave you links. This happened in the earlier storms. This is the Western Australia's highway currently. So heads up if you're driving out there. Major storm about to slam the South Island. We were just talking about it. Just left Australia. This is you, New Zealand. What left the former tropical cyclone Fahey is now approaching New Zealand as a major storm is expected to hit the South Island, lower parts of the North Island. Estimated rain totals here in the lower portion of the South Island is 7 to 15 inches. That is the rain totals in the water vapor map. Gale force winds are expected for southern and central New Zealand, initially from the north, but turning west and then southwest later. It's great coverage here, good visuals. It's expected to approach the west coast early Thursday afternoon with significant wind impacts likely. This totally trippy animation. Oh, it's amazing. Let's watch it descend on the island. These are the heavy bands in purple. Boom! Saturation. And then that is when it's going to trip the earthquake. Because this earth spot is going to be coming over here. Let's look for heads up to Wellington. 6.5 or greater tomorrow. Here are the watches and warnings for the islands. Red are warnings. Orange is watches. We're not talking Swiss. Earthquake strikes Afghanistan and Pakistan. Casualties are reported. There's one dead girl. Unfortunately, 15 others were injured in parts of Pakistan as the result of the January 31st quake. This guy is pondering up, and this guy is really concerned, holding a wrench, about to shove it. I mean, what is this picture? These guys are just like pimping, playing 3-card Monty. There's the quake. 6.1 in Jarm, 35 kilometers south of. Shake map on green. Strongest earthquake in 3 years we reported on yesterday. 4.9 coming on the Richter scale was measured north side of the caldera of Bardabunga at 7:24 p.m. last night. The quake is the strongest to be measured since the volcanic eruption in the lava field of Holuhran ceased on February 8, 2015. The eruption had been ongoing since the 31st. Largest eruption in 3 years. No imminent quake. I mean eruption. There's no imminent eruption based on the data. We have a little bit of moderate uptick here in Peru just now. And there's been some activity in Ecuador. 5.2 popping off and an aftershock recently. But the only quake of note is happening yesterday in Afghanistan when the KP was low. KP is back up to 2 and 3. We've had some solar activity, and the solar wind is now affecting the planet, so the earthquakes should quiet down for now. Let's talk about the Arctic Sea news that's coming out. Lowest extent ever. I want you to see what that is. Extent. It has nothing to do with the volume or the thickness. And this is the current extent. Now, if we look up at, here's an animation of all of January coming from Tony Heller, heads up. I'll leave you links to his Facebook page. It's showing you the thickness of the Arctic sea ice. This is the thickest it's been in decades. We're looking at over 12 feet thick here in the northern parts of Russia here. This is preventing commerce from going through the Arctic at all. The Arctic ice is considered glacial at this point. From one side to the other, it is over 10 feet thick everywhere, so you couldn't get an icebreaker through this red zone. So commerce has ceased through the Arctic. It had been possible for a while because for the last 10 years, Arctic ice has not been this thick. And what's happening is, check the animation. The winds, prevailing winds, we talked about this the other night, are blowing to the north here, and they're also blowing to the north from this direction, and they're causing the ice to compress up here in the North Pole, which is very good for building glaciers and kicking off the next ice age. Look at the thickness of ice here. These areas will not thaw in the spring. This is over 15 foot thick right now as we're talking, and growing. Same here, 15 foot thick. In this region, 15 foot thick and building, turning red. And this is because the prevailing winds are stacking the ice up here. So the extent is getting smaller, but the thickness is becoming epic, and the volume is increasing tenfold. Now, if we do a side-by-side with January 26th of 2008 versus January 26th of this year, this is when they were calling for ice free in the summer because the thickness of the ice was basically non-existent in about 60% of the Arctic. There was only thick ice in this 20% zone here, just north of Greenland. And now you can see all of the glacial fjords up here clearly filled with very thick ice. North of Greenland is very thick, all the way across to Russia. Very thick ice. So back in 2008, they were predicting that the North Pole could be ice-free. Scientists were saying. IPCC shills. And you can clearly see that the volume of ice 10 years later is probably 5 times as much in the Arctic Circle. Look at the thickness of ice here in these northern islands, all the way to Russia. So there's no commerce or icebreakers able to even travel through the Arctic. They're not going to report on that to you. It's nothing you will hear anywhere but this channel and from Tony Heller himself. Now let's figure out what's going on and why is the ice getting thicker? Well, it's clear. This summer here, the average temperature in the last few years in the summer is below average. And when they're saying the Arctic is warming faster than ever before in history, they're talking about this warming here. So here's the green baseline. So in the winter, the temperature has been much warmer, but it's still 30 degrees below freezing. 30 to 50 degrees below freezing. We're talking a difference between minus 35 versus minus 25. So the Arctic is balmy in the winter. 30 to 50 degrees below freezing is balmy, according to the people that are telling you it's warming in the Arctic. And in the summer, it's below average, which is causing the ice to grow. That's how glacial cycles work. The exact opposite is common sense idiots will report on. And anyone who calls minus 30 C or 255 Kelvin warm is an idiot. And that's just truth. Let's talk about the new grand minimum. This is Actuaries Summit from 2013. That's 5 years ago. They're talking about new skills being developed by actuaries if they are to understand the changes in risks that are occurring in the new grand solar minimum. This is a crazy report, guys. I'm going to leave you links to it. It's not that long, 32 pages, and we're going to jump right to the appendix and talk about UK weather and Australian weather during the Dalton minimum. Now, this paper is indispensable for everyone. Needs to print this out. Thank you, Brent Walker. It has all the graphs you need to know about the cyclic nature of the sun. Most importantly, the historical information on what's going on with the cycles and what to expect. If you come down here into the appendix, it tells us about the Australian weather. So this is a heads up for you people in Australia. You're going to find out what to expect as we descend into this grand minimum in the next 2 decades. The first cycle, like I said, guys, in Australia, it started out with drought, and drought. No rain fell from 1789 through 1790. Temperatures reached 105. Drought again, year after that. More drought, another drought. Severe hailstorm, up to 8-inch hail in 1796. You get to 1797 with drought. 99 began the big floods. So the first solar cycle in the grand minimum, the Dalton minimum, was drought. The second solar cycle brought the floods. Cosmic rays were very high, and then we had big floods on the Hawkesbury River. There seems to have been drought. There flood on the Windsor in 1806. 1809, the Derwent River in Tasmania overflowed its banks. On March 11th, water sold for $6d a pail in the colony. There was a severe hailstorm, drought, severe hail. You get the picture. So come look here, and you can see Hawkesbury River heights, the flood levels for that decade. Real quick before we end up the video, we'll talk about UK weather during the Dalton minimum. It started off very cold and frosty, huge snowstorms. There were forest fires. Winter was mixed with rain, snow, frost. Crops were severely affected by the late 1780s. Large hailstorms. Several violent storms of hail and snow. Storms and more storms, hot and dry. Then the crop loss increased. More hailstorms. Then the food riots in 1800. Over the price of bread. Summer was very hot all over Europe, including England. Hailstorms, irregular hailstones up to 11 inches in August of 1800. Killed wildlife in Oxfordshire and Bedfordshire. It was followed by further severe storms on August 22nd, September 10th, and September 15th. I bet you weren't taught about that in school. Then, after the food riots, the next year, drought. Both houses of parliament had inquiries into how to obtain food. Luckily, grain was imported from the U.S. The next winter was very cold. The Thames had ice and froze over. And so on and so on. This is a historical account unlike any other that you're going to get, and you're welcome. So use it wisely and share this with people that you're trying to warn about the coming cold. Guys, we're almost at 15,000 subscribers. That means we've gotten 5,000 subscribers in the first month of this year. We hit 10,000 on New Year's, thanks to you. And now we've gotten 5,000 more. Just about. We're just 32 away. So let's make it happen. And that's a heads up. Here we are, just around 1360.5 TSI. We have many things working against us. The total solar irradiance of the sun is waning. We're at the bottom of a solar cycle. The Earth's magnetosphere is waning. We're headed towards maximum eccentricity in the Milankovitch cycle in 2024. The Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation is descending. The Pacific decadal oscillation is going into a negative phase. And we're about to have water released from a polar gyre that's been stuck there for nearly a decade, which will cause temperatures to drop rapidly. And for the next several years, we're going to witness weather events that have never been seen on the planet. This is why this channel started recording this 6 months ago. We thank you to all of our new subscribers and to all you people whose heads are popping out of your buttocks right now. We thank you for joining us. Spread this information that was been out for 5 years because it's jam-packed with the introduction to what a grand solar minimum is, the history of solar activity over the last millennia, the IPCC's fraudulent claims on climate, and on and on. It has a background in solar cycles, solar emission spectrum. This is a great resource to give to people, and it's from 2013. So it's not something new. It's something that they can realize that we have known about this for a long time. Guys, we're just got out of a Skype before I made this with David Dubine and Christian Westbrook, and we are so stoked about this radio program that we're about to do tomorrow night from 10 p.m. to 12 midnight East Coast time on Revolution Radio, which is at freedomslips.com. There'll be links in the description, which is down here below the video on the bottom left where it says show more. You have to click on that to get all the links. So join us for the radio program. If you're going to miss it, don't worry. We'll have rebroadcasts on all of our channels because this information is important and people need to know. We're going to talk about the problems associated with the oncoming grand solar minimum, the additive effects of the Milankovitch cycle, and how it may unfold. Will it be a geological event, a VEI-7 that catastrophically causes everyone to immediately buy all the products in all the stores, and that's the beginning of the end? Will it be followed by wars for control of food and other commodities? You'll hear about it all tomorrow. Share this with like-minded people. Let's get our subscriptions up to 100,000 by the end of the year. And be safe, everybody.